Welcome to Here Come the Details, a podcast show with Josh FADEM. This episode, we forced our friend and non-performer Jack Damminga to dress up as Sean Connery and speak in his voice for our full conversation, as we explored the various meanings of impressions. As well, we were shocked by a complete transformation of our frequent contributor and comedian Evan Hughes. Please enjoy.
Is a bad impression worse than a bad joke? When you say a bad joke or a wordplay or a pun, people seem to groan. They say, "oh," as if they have a problem with what you just said, or they're upset that their time was spent listening to the setup and the payoff. Why? Big deal. So you heard a sentence and then you heard another sentence. Do you feel the same way if you hear a bad impression, like you hear an impression of a voice that doesn't sound enough like the voice? Or maybe one person thinks an impression is bad and the other person thinks that it's good. So sometimes it's subjective, where someone hears just a little fragment of the voice and they think it's very good. Other people, I myself find myself being a bit of a snob. Sometimes I don't like a solid impression of someone who I've heard people do impressions of too many times. We're trying to find out, is a bad impression worse than a bad joke? These are the answers that we're trying to get to the bottom of here in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
That's good coffee.
Hot beverage.
Great. Okay. Welcome to this special episode of Here Come the Details. We're doing something a bit unusual today. We've got a topic, and there's a reason that we look the way we do. My name is still Josh FADEM, and I don't know how to say that, how I'm trying to say it in this voice. I don't even know how to say my own name properly. But today's topic is impressions. We're discussing the idea of impressions, or impression. What does it mean? What does it bloody mean, for crying out loud? How it came to me was, what is an impression? What are the many connotations of impressions? How do you do them? Are they something that come to your natural ear? Are there first impressions? Are there bad impressions? Are there worst impressions? Is there impressionism with beautiful artwork by painters like Monet and Manet? I think they're both impressionists, but I don't know. Maybe we're going to get to those details. What was that?
Monet for sure.
For my guest, I'll tell you how I thought of this. We were doing an episode a couple of weeks ago, and this is my good friend Jack, childhood friend, known him for many years. Maybe we could even discuss our first impressions of one another.
As well, I believe the intro was you doing an impression.
What our challenge is, what we're trying to do today, is we're trying to discuss impressions as impressions. If you can't tell, if you're not sure, I'm doing my best Michael Caine. Now, I don't proclaim to be the best Michael Caine. There are a lot of Michael Caines. People always do Michael Caine. Since Michael Caine has been a star, people have been doing Michael Caine. Maybe started happening a bit more in the late 60s, but he became a star in the mid to late 60s. So people have been doing Michael Caine impressions, and surely anyone who likes Michael Caine and likes impressions is aware of those who do better impressions. So I'm not trying to say I'm the best. I don't even know that I'm good. I might be very well a hacky Michael Caine. But in some ways, and this is often my opinion of impressions, and I'm someone who does impressions, most impressions are hacky. Most impressions are overdone. I personally prefer more obscure impressions because no one does them, and that's kind of the joke. But lots of people do Michael Caine. I happen to have an okay Michael Caine. I'm not saying it's the best one. I didn't say that. Did you hear me say that?
Didn't say.
I never said that. So anyway, we were doing an episode. My friend Jack, he trotted out his Sean Connery impression, which is who I've got with me right here. Is he Jack or is he Sean Connery?
Jack, always. Yes, of course.
This is my friend Jack, and he happens to do Sean Connery. In fact, I've known Jack, we may have been since what, 11 years old, 12 years old?
I think it was younger than that.
Maybe even younger, 10 years old, 9. He's done, I believe, the challenge here is going to be not doing Sean Connery in front of a Sean Connery. Sean Connery starts talking, and I'm going to suddenly become Sean Connery.
The thing will be difficult as well, coming reverse of that.
So what, is your microphone loud enough? Is his microphone loud enough? Initially, so...
It keeps dropping.
Oh, yeah. We've got to tighten that up, don't we?
Crank it down.
You've always got to tighten your microphone. Yeah, how long... I want to ask my friend Jack, my good friend Jack. He's a good friend of mine. And you know it's appropriate because Michael Caine was good friends with Sean Connery.
Of course they were. Wonder what they got up to back in the day.
They were probably getting into a bit of fun.
Bit of trouble, eh?
They were causing a bit of... They were rebel-rousing, weren't they? Weren't they rousing a little bit?
Renting houses in the country. things like that?
Well, they were both men about town, and they both played British spies. Well, Michael Caine came from had a working class upbringing. What about Sean Connery?
Sean Connery, his was also a working class, and then he turned out to be a bodybuilder.
I do know a little about that story, but he was Scottish, right?
Yes, that's correct.
But he played a British agent when he did James Bond.
I believe the origin story is that James Bond was Scottish, or perhaps at the very least,
So he was
English.
That I didn't immediately know. I didn't know that. Michael Caine played a character, Harry Palmer. I believe maybe he worked for the government. I don't know. But there's a few little ways in that I have. That's one thing I want to discuss about impressions. There's a few ways in to doing them. For me, one of the ways in is you find a word. You find a one word. Or if, many people, like, if you want to weigh into Michael Caine, you say, "Hi, Michael Caine." Or you say, "Don't blink," because I brought this right here. This is a book on acting that he wrote. And he also did a well-lampooned document. Well, it was an acting class. Anyway, what's your way into Sean Connery? How do you do it?
I think about the myriad movies that I grew up with. Of course, the early Connery, where he was Bond, and it was much more of a mellow, laid-back, more British accent.
Right, he was more refined. He kept it in.
Right.
It was more, he was doing it kind of subtle. Would you say that?
Then he had a middle part where he seemed to get a bit deeper, and then later on it was a caricature of himself.
Is that your opinion?
That's my opinion.
By the time he did The Rock.
It's hard not to do your impression as you speak.
Maybe if you just talk a little bit more as him. Well, see, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So, like, if I want to get into Michael Caine, I might say The Ipcress File. That's a movie he starred in. I haven't seen it. There's many levels.
I think of things like The Hunt for Red October.
So there's sometimes just saying the title gets you in there.
Exactly.
So say some of the titles that get you in there.
Medicine Man.
Great movie.
Found the cure for the plague of the 20th century.
So
now I've lost it.
Quoting lines.
Exactly.
That's funny. Say that again.
I found the cure for the plague of the 20th century, and now I've lost it.
He found a cure for the plague of the 20th century, and now he's lost it.
But I was just watching
Is he upset? Let me finish my thought.
Of course.
Was he upset in that film when he says that?
Of course.
So maybe you might
be a bit more upset. Be a bit more dramatic. I found the cure for the plague of the 20th century, and now I've lost it.
That's good.
Was it better?
You said it. It was so good.
You really are an acting coach, aren't you?
Well, Michael Caine was an acting coach.
You're in your element.
We're playing around here. We're doing lots of bits. It's an exploration of impressions and how does someone get into it. I don't know that it will be interesting to watch.
You don't have to try to think you are him to be him.
That would be
to do an impression.
That would be the performer's instinct, right? You would think someone who's a comedian or a sketch comedian, if he's going to dress up and do an impression, that he's playing that part. But this is what's revolutionary about what we're doing. We're not playing that part. We're only playing along. We're doing ourselves. I'm Josh, and you're Jack.
Yeah, Jack.
But,
Jack, of course.
So we're breaking the rules of impression doing, aren't we? And there's my friend Carl over there.
Do you do any impressions, Carl?
I've already asked him. He doesn't.
Impressions. They call them black magic mockery of the mouth. But if you hear one, if you see one, you may be trapped forever in a prison of laughter. We're here on this cold, cold day in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to find out if anyone does any impressions. Anyone? It's a slow day in finding impressions here in Tulsa. We're seeking someone in the empty streets of Tulsa. Excuse me, miss. We're here in front of these new, fresh apartment buildings. Anybody in these new apartments do any impressions? So far, no takers. What is it about impressions that touch the heart of the soul, that are so exciting for many people? Is it a magic trick? What is it? Excuse me, sir. Might have asked a couple questions. We're trying to find out about impressions. Do you do any impressions?
Oh, God, no.
No. Your family member.
Nobody's that funny.
Do you like impressions?
I mean, not.
You think they're hacky? Any impressions will do. Excuse me, sir. Does anyone do a Jack Nicholson impression? We are desperate to find one person. Miss, you mind coming here? What's your name?
I'm Haley Parker.
Hi, Haley Parker. Thank you for being here. We're trying to find out if anyone in town and anyone in Tulsa, Oklahoma does any impressions. Do you do any impressions?
Dude, I do impressions.
Really? Really? This is great. We haven't gotten any impressions yet. Who do you do?
Okay, so I can do Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky, Kermit the Frog, Miss Piggy, Fonzie Bear. I can do Carrot Top.
Oh, that sounds so funny.
Chris Rock.
Any singers?
Will Smith, Jada Smith, Jaden Smith.
Sir, do you do any impressions? No?
Willow Smith.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and hear one of these impressions. We hear one of these impressions?
Fucking Cher.
Let's go and hear the Cher.
Madonna.
Hey, sir, what's your name?
Josiah
Josiah what?
Parks.
Who do you do an impression of?
Norman Finkelstein. I do a pretty good Norman Finkelstein.
I'm not sure who that is. Who is Norman Finkelstein? What is it about impressions that gets so deep into the heart of the soul that
Well, I do often think about what it might be like if Michael Jackson had played Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. It might go a little bit something like this.
Okay, run, go. We're looking for impressions. Anywhere. An impression anywhere. And there's a person right now. Let's find out what they think about some impressions. Sir, do you do any impressions?
I'm looking for my dad. Dad!
What does your dad look like? Do you have an impression of your dad?
Me, but older. Dad!
I can do George Clooney too.
Okay. Can we hear that Clooney?
Tom Cruise too.
Well, who is Norman Finkelstein?
Big political scientist, early 2000s. He did that debate on Democracy Now! With Alan Dershowitz.
Let's go ahead and
hear
that.
Queen of England.
In Tulsa, Oklahoma, it is very hard to find an impression these days.
I never use my parents' martyrdom to argue.
Megan Fox, all the Megans, every Christina Aguilera I can do.
Sir.
Hey, what's up, man?
Do you right here. What's your name, sir?
Yeah, Charles.
Sir, do you do any impressions of anyone or anything like that?
No, not that I know of, man. Not really, man.
Are you sure you don't do any impressions of anyone?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, man.
It sounds kind of like you do an impression of someone.
You have to use the truth.
So no luck finding people with it.
Sorry, hey, I'll do an impression for you. I didn't mean to pull your leg.
Okay, fine.
This is one of my best ones. This is an impression of your mom last night.
Okay, all right, okay. Has anyone ever told you you sound like you're doing an impression of one Matthew McConaughey, sir?
That's the first time I heard that, man.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, he's all right. I never really watched.
Whoa, what's that you just said? He's what? Say that 3 times if you don't mind.
He's all right. He's all right. He's all right.
That's another thing that I want to talk about while you're here. You don't perform that much. You're not really a performer.
That's correct. Not professionally, anyway. I do a bit of performing. I think we all do.
That's what impressions are. They're social performances, aren't they?
Right.
They're just, you're doing an impression of being happy. You do an impression of being sad. Sometimes you genuinely are. Sometimes you've got an emotional take in your body, but then you've got to put on a face of something else. So impressions are just sort of an extension of that, wouldn't you say?
Correct.
Anyway, there's no one in town. I went through my whole Rolodex of people who are in town.
So you're saying I was last on your call list?
Well,
you really know how to give someone a compliment, don't you?
Well, but you're not a performer.
That's correct.
Let me clarify.
There's a nice way to say this.
I'm doing my best because I don't know how to say it as Michael Caine. Okay? But sometimes I notice Michael Caine, he gets very blunt. He goes, there's no one bloody good in town.
Well,
I can't find a single comedic performer who can do a bloody impression.
What's going on there? What's up with that?
You say that?
I'm asking you as Josh my voice.
When I listen to you too much, I start to want to do you.
The feeling is mutual.
So people don't understand, this is a real challenge, what we're doing. You did Sean Connery.
That's correct.
On the podcast, you just trotted it out. I thought, that's an old impression. Everybody does that. And then I thought, no, it's very good.
Hacky impressions.
Hacky impressions.
That
yes,
was a
I wanted to call this
for the show. Hacky impressions.
That's right. I wanted to call this Attack of the Hacky Impression. So that is what we're calling this episode of here, or Invasion of the Overdone Impressions, Attack of the Hacky Impressions. Maybe there's a play. We're figuring it out. So yeah, your way in is by saying one of the words.
Something from one of his movies.
One of his quotes.
The Hunt for Red October, of course.
What did he say?
Just saying the title is almost enough. But then there's other ones. It's like, careful, Ryan. There's things in here that don't react well to bullets.
That's good. I like that. See, I have a few little notes on Michael
He's
Caine.
in his late stage where he's definitely doing a caricature of himself. Like The Rock's the worst one, of course, but also the best.
Why would you say it's a caricature of Sean Connery?
Because it ends up sounding like not someone's voice. It's not real. He's doing an impression of himself and overdoing it. Like Pacino in some of his later stuff.
Like what? What was that?
It's difficult to stay in.
No, but this is
like, she's got a great ass. Like, later Pacino. Right.
See, I set up rules on this. I said, we've got to stay in the voice.
But
we're not the character.
As ourselves makes it more challenging, I think.
Yes, and this is
good.
good.
I don't go around talking like this all the time.
I want to give us props because we're so brilliant. Have you ever seen a podcast or heard a podcast where they're trying to do this bloody thing? I don't think it's been done. There was something that you were going to say. We were talking about why the Sean Connery impression wears out its welcome. And I was going to say, that's why this is a brilliant idea, because it circles back into the idea of persona. Sean Connery was a star. Michael Caine is a star, was a star. I think he's a bit retired now.
Retired, you said.
Did I say retired? He's retired.
Retired.
Michael Caine.
Sure.
Michael Caine is retired. He doesn't do it anymore.
Right.
He doesn't do it anymore. If you listen to Michael Caine's biography, or you watch him in interviews, he says often that he had to invent himself. He had to reinvent himself. And that he came from a working class background. He was a Cockney guy. There were no big stars that would talk in his way. And so he leaned into what it was that people did. And they were good friends, so it was the same way with Sean Connery. He was discovered weightlifting by accident.
It's just another handsome face in the gym.
Since this is about impressions, and we want to talk all about lots of different angles of impressions, we also have frequent contributor of the show, Evan Hughes. We have, of course, producer Rob Stewart. I talk about hacky impressions. And the first hacky impression that comes to mind when I think of hacky impressions, it's often done pretty good. Some do it even great. And that one is Christopher Walken. If you have any celebrity who can do a back pocket full of impressions.
Is he joining us today?
Anytime on Jimmy Fallon or something like that, they have a guest and they say, do you do any impressions? And they say, I'll do a few. They say, Christopher Walken, okay. In my opinion, I always see him and I think that's the most dreadful because it's overdone. I'm more being critical of the fact that they're doing it than the fact that it's not good. But it's usually quite good. I myself can't do a Christopher Walken impression.
It's a difficult impression to do.
That's why I guess it's so impressive, Suppose I'll walk a mile in walking shoes. My good friend Evan, I was complaining there's no one in town who's a comedic performer who does impressions. But it just so happens that my friend Evan Hughes does the best Christopher Walken impression that I've ever heard. He's topped them all. Jay Moore, great impression of Christopher Walken. Kevin Pollak, amazing impression of Christopher Walken. Even some of the great actors of today, Tom Hiddleston, Gary Oldman, you can find clips online of Jimmy Fallon saying, would you do an impression of Christopher Walken? And they do it. And I think it's not the best, and you'd think they could do better. My friend Evan Hughes has topped all of them.
Well, Josh, and I have to take offense to what you said, saying that the impressions are hacky. I have been a Christopher Walken fan for years. Probably my entire life I've been watching Christopher Walken movies.
It's unbelievable.
Going back to
it's like I'm looking right at him.
Reservoir Dogs is how long I've been watching Christopher Walken movies.
And do you remember who he plays in Reservoir Dogs?
Yes. He was speaking to them. There was a scene.
The Quentin Tarantino picture with Christopher Walken?
Yes.
It's funny because I don't bloody remember who he plays in that picture.
He is in that movie, Josh. I take offense to what you said, that it is not good to do a Christopher Walken impression.
I feel as though I've insulted Christopher Walken himself because I'm sitting right here looking at you and I'm like, that's my friend Evan, dressed as Christopher Walken. But then you speak and I think, is it a recording playing
It's spot on.
Well, I've probably listened to more Christopher Walken that I have my own family.
That's quite a bit.
That's a lot. So, is this the only impression you do?
He's got a whole slew of
I
them,
could
doesn't he?
do Jack Nicholson.
Well, maybe later on we'll switch you over to Jack Nicholson because you do look eerily like both of them. Wouldn't you say it's kind of eerie?
Perhaps a bit Michael Douglas. I could see Michael Douglas in the 90s wearing something like that.
You keep talking. I had some notes that I wrote down.
What should I talk about? Talk about on the way over here? Listening to, I found an audiobook he's reading of a former Prime Minister of Scotland.
Sean Connery does it?
Correct.
Oh, what was it about?
It's about Scotland and their independence.
So it must have been near and dear to, it was either near and dear to his heart.
Correct.
Were you learning anything?
It's a fascinating book.
There was something that I wanted to get out about Michael Caine. It's well documented, the different levels of impressions. So what you might notice I'm trying to do is I'll start shouting or I speak as if I'm trying to get someone's attention, you over there, and then when it seems like that idea has run out of steam, then I go back down here.
I misspoke. His name was Alexander Salmond, and he was First Minister to Ireland, or to Scotland. He wrote a book.
Don't let Sean Connery hear you say that.
Of course not. I just wanted to make sure I got that correction in there.
So did you get a chance to watch Zardoz?
I did not.
I didn't either. There's a movie they were in together.
I'm working out for this summer. I'm going to try to wear the Zardoz bikini.
The next time we do it, we're going to do that. Well, I watched a movie with Michael Caine called The Island.
Where he's scantily clad.
Yes, no, I know that about Zardoz.
Is there any movies like that for Michael Caine?
I might need to take another look. Well, there's a movie with both of them called The Man Who Would Be King. It's directed by John Hughes, who I know was a hero of Michael Caine. And I haven't seen it. I went to see it one time at the Egyptian in Los Angeles years ago, and I fell asleep because I thought, this movie's boring.
What's going on in that movie?
I don't know.
You fell asleep.
They're supposed to be buddies. I think they're in India somewhere, and they're supposed to be buddies. About the levels of impression. When you do an impression, and there's other people that I try to do, when you do the impression, you find a few ways in. And that's what I think makes a good impression. It's not that you're an imprint. It's not that you've completely embodied. You're not doing like Daniel Day-Lewis when he becomes Abraham Lincoln. If you don't know his process, he's probably doing an impression.
Really gets into character, right? Famously. Do you call that the method?
I don't know about that. I mean, I suppose we could read this book here and see what it is. I wanted to say that I think I found a little bit of Michael Caine that I don't see other impressionists doing. I think I've blown the bloody doors off. That's the name of Michael Caine's autobiography that I was listening to. It's called Blowing the Bloody Doors Off, because that's a quote from a movie he's called The Italian Job. You know, you're only supposed to blow up the bloody doors. And then they do that in the Steve Coogan bit, the Michael Caine impression off.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
But they do. Video. Funny video, which is why that's what made me think that this is a hecky overdone. They topped it. There's no topping it. There's no doing better.
It's the definitive conversation on Michael Caine.
They basically effectively ended the Michael Caine impression, in my opinion. But here I am doing it. But let me tell you the other thing I wanted to say about it. It's fun. It's fun to do. It's fun to find a voice and live in it. Don't you think so?
I believe so, yes.
Probably.
It's challenging.
But it also
dry.
It also appeals. Do you need some water?
I've got some here.
Your own.
See how you slipped into Connery there?
I did. I did see how.
It's difficult not to trot out the Cockney after you've been speaking.
Connery's not Cockney, is he?
No, I'm saying after you're doing your...
To go back to the Cockney?
Right.
Should we switch?
It's happening.
Would it feel better if we switch? Wait, let me get my little bit out that I thought of, okay? I don't think I've ever seen someone do this with the Michael Caine impression.
Truly groundbreaking.
That's what I was saying. I think we're premiering a bit of Michael Caine that I have not seen in a Michael Caine impression, okay? There's the part where Michael Caine, it's in a lot of movies that he's done. Yeah, there's the part where he gets very quiet, we all know that. And there's the part where he gets angry, and then there's the part where he speaks very slowly. But there's the one little bit where maybe there's a scene where there's a woman, and she says, I love you. And Michael Caine, he doesn't love her. And he has to break the news to her very gently that he's in love with someone else. He almost speaks to them like they're a little child. He says, you're very beautiful, but I don't love you. I'm in love with someone else. Would I like to kiss you? Of course, because you're very beautiful, but my heart belongs to another woman. And he talks to them like that little child in kindergarten, and he always gets very close to his heart.
This will be like one of those sleep podcasts for your listeners.
Maybe, and that's okay. If they fall asleep, if I put them to sleep...
Could do worse than falling asleep to Michael Caine.
Now, little baby, now I lay you down to sleep to let you know that I'm in love with someone else.
Now you hear soft raindrops on your tin roof. It's very relaxing. Just breathe In and out.
Yes.
In.
That's very good. Sean Connery and Michael Caine.
Describe a very mellow scene. Those tables, they've got things on them. The lighting seems to be a bit aggressive.
The lightning rattles a little, but it doesn't wake you up. You keep doing it.
It's not making me sleepy. It's like listeners.
Gentle. It's gentle.
Very gentle.
So, Evan, what's the way into your Chris Walken?
I couldn't hear what you two were saying.
We were doing a bit. I was doing a bit as if I'm breaking really bad news to you, but I care. I'm gentle in my heart. I feel very gently about you.
Well, I've just been waiting to talk more about Christopher Walken movies.
What are some other ones?
What's your favorite?
I saw one the other day called Mr. Destiny. Came out in 1990.
That's actually a movie with Michael Caine. I don't think Christopher Walken's in that one.
Well, have you seen Back to the Future?
Of course I have.
So that
I don't think Christopher Walken's in that one either.
Is that Michael Caine?
No, that's Christopher Lloyd, not Walken.
Michael J. Fox.
And Michael J. Fox. It's Michael J. Fox, not Michael Caine. And it's Christopher Lloyd, not Christopher Walken.
I will use my time after this to review more movies.
Evan, hold on. Let me ask you a question. I'm a little confused because your impression is spot on. Perfect. But have you ever seen a Christopher Walken movie?
My friend Ian told me that my impression is like someone that has never seen a Christopher Walken movie.
Is he referring to himself in the third person?
Evan or...
Your friend?
I sometimes confuse the two.
Your friend Ian and Christopher Walken? Is that what you're saying?
Myself and Christopher Walken.
So are you saying that you're so immersed in the character that you've lost
You lose
Evan?
yourself.
Should we be referring to you as actual Christopher Walken? We're doing a bit. I'm Josh. That's Jack.
I'm so deeply in this universe that I can no longer remember what it is like to be Evan.
Have you ever heard a better impression?
It's bloody blowing my mind. Blow the bloody mind off. What else were we going to talk about? First impressions. Was there ever someone that was very important to you? Or maybe it was a lady that you had eyes for and you wanted to make a good impression. What would you do in that situation to try to make a good impression? This could go to meeting someone's parents, meeting a date. You go out, you want to meet a little bird. You know, what do you do?
Try to remember the act of listening, you know, just how do you show that you give a shit, paying attention.
You've got to listen.
Right.
Like in acting, you've got to listen.
Make a good impression. Sometimes you want to try to be funny, you know, it might not work, but it
The
might be a hit.
best impression is a tribute to that person. With all due respect and admiration, it's a way to show love and to show that you have followed their career, you've seen their movies, you're a big fan, and you want to do the best job that you can do.
Are you telling me that this is your tribute to Christopher Walken? You're honoring Christopher Walken right now by doing it. Are you also honoring all the people who did Christopher Walken impressions?
This is an honor for anyone to see Christopher or anyone. I believe that if Christopher were to see this impression,
He'd think he was watching a video of himself.
Like looking into a mirror.
he would be so flattered, we would probably kiss.
He would feel like he'd been seen. Because
Open
that's all anyone wants when you talk about listening. It's like...
Open mouth or just on the lips, like
It's
a French way
not
on the
just
cheek.
an impression. It's a way to take their life and make it your own.
There was something I was going to say. I can't remember what it was. We were talking about a few different things. Rob?
Is it the foundation of first impressions and the implications they have on your relationships?
Yes. Yeah, we were talking about that. You have any opinions on that?
Not so much opinions, but just trying to look up if there's any enlightening facts that we can find here on a quick glance. But
Bad impressions. Now, what makes a bad impression? And I'm talking about when you meet someone. Not like, we're doing, I suppose it's debatable. We're doing good impressions and bad impressions. Like, there's obviously people who do these impressions, you know, impersonations, but then there's also you make a bad impression. You fumble, you drop your cigarette, you spill a cup of coffee. What were you going to say?
well, I was just going to say, how do you feel? Is there a story you can tell us about a first impression you think that kind of altered your journey to where you are right now?
A first impression, a bad one?
A bad one.
I remember I went on a date with this girl. I wouldn't say it altered my journey, but looking back, it was a funny anecdote, right? I remember I must have been in my 30s, and I was trying out doing a dating app. So the one that I did was one of the Jewish ones. It was in Los Angeles, right?
Was it J-Date?
J-Swat.
J-Swat.
I believe it was called J-Swat. I matched with this girl, this bird, and she said, we should go out, I suppose. And I said, all right. I believe she was a creative type. She was talking, and she's talking about, getting to know each other, getting on, trying, having a chat, sharing a drink. She says that her sister is a surgeon. And I have seen this documentary, The Iceman, the killer, I believe he was in New York, or he was a mob hitman. You've seen it?
I don't
You ever seen
so.
the Iceman tapes?
I have seen the Iceman tapes.
They don't have Christopher Walken in them.
Are you sure about that?
Have you really seen them?
I really...
You know the one I'm talking about.
His name was Richard Kuklinski.
You got it. You hit the nail on the head. So I watched this interview with Richard Kuklinski, and he talks to a doctor. The doctor says, you got this disorder, this disorder, this disorder. And he killed hundreds of people, countless people, mob hits.
Allegedly.
It's dreadful. The doctor says to him, you could have had a better chance, even with these diagnoses. But because your upbringing, there was no love, you did not have a chance. And I think that made the Iceman understand himself a little bit better. He said you could have done something great, like be a pilot or a surgeon, something like that. So I took that little fragment of information, and I thought about my experience with surgeons. They're a bit, there's nothing there. They're sort of empty. They shake your hand, oh, how are you? Act like a nice man. They're doing an impression of a nice man, but there's nothing inside because they're able to cut you open and take out your guts and stitch you up and fix the thing. So I made a crack to this girl. I said, your sister is probably, a psychopath or something like that. I think the tone of the date changed. We never went out again. But that's fine. I don't regret that because, who wants to be with a psychopath surgeon sister?
A lot of people do. There's all kinds of relationships, Josh.
That's true. That was the one. That one just wasn't for me. At any rate, sometimes you know what happens? Sometimes, too, maybe you can relate to this as a guy who's a funny guy, social guy. Maybe you can, too. You're being funny. You're making jokes. You got them in the palm of your hand, and you think, I could get away with anything.
So you test it out?
You test it. Yes. You test it out.
You test the waters.
You think, I'll push it one notch too far. Up, they're still laughing. One more, they're still laughing. One more, I'll take it too far. Do you have an experience with that?
There's a version of that where you're playing DJ at a party, and you see, let's just see how weird these people are.
Yeah.
Put on something just a bit off the wall, just to see how far you can go.
Have you done that
It's
before?
a bad impression.
Have you done that
People
before?
don't like it.
Have you done that before?
I have done it.
What
many
was the
times.
song?
Didn't learn my lesson.
What was the song?
White Pony. Just because if you
The Deftones.
You know the song. No, it was like an 80s electro groove. It's a bit weird.
Isn't there the song by the Deftones? Oh, that's an album called White Pony, the band the Deftones.
No, it's a band.
You look it up on the info. I want to hear that song that blew them all away. Evan, was there ever a time you had them in the palm of your hand? You think, I can do no wrong, and then turns out you were wrong. You did wrong.
Are you saying with a woman?
Doesn't have to be with a woman. That story I told was just the first one that came to my mind. Well, oops, I went in the wrong direction on a first date with a Jewish girl.
So there's a time where the person thinks you're cool, right?
Right.
And then you've got them.
White Horse by Laid Back.
You're gonna
not White Pony.
have relations with the person, but then they learn something about you.
You're talking about you're going to make love.
But they.
That's another part of Michael Caine, by the way. I have to interrupt because I found you're going to make love. When he gets gentle like that.
I don't call it that. If I was going to
What
do
does
something
Christopher
to a
Walken
girl,
call it?
Christopher Walken was in that Saturday Night Live sketch where he is so forceful with the
You're talking
women.
about the Continental.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I am nothing like that, but I would say Christopher Walken in Reservoir Dogs, in that movie is more how I am with women. I like to get women.
In Reservoir Dogs. Which character in Reservoir Dogs? Reservoir Dogs, the other thing about that movie, I don't think there's a single woman in the movie. I don't remember Christopher Walken being in the movie, and I also don't remember there being a single woman.
There's a scene, Josh, where he has her tied up and they're all interrogating her. and he's speaking Sicilian to the woman.
I think you're getting that mixed up with a different Quentin Tarantino-connected film. You're thinking of one, True Romance. Two, it's not a lady, it's Dennis Hopper.
The movie I'm thinking of is Reservoir Dogs. And I will stop this podcast right now.
You're going to pull it up and show me, prove you're right.
I will pull it up on my IMDb page.
Oh, are you Christopher Walken now? Is that what you're saying? You said my. Are you just so immersed in it that you're Christopher Walken?
I will show you that I was in the movie Josh.
Josh?
Yes.
Josh. The movie's called Josh? Oh, you're talking to me. You were just addressing me, but because Christopher Walken has such a strange cadence, it sounded like you were saying the movie Josh. That's very good. He sometimes puts his words together. He runs them together in a strange way, doesn't he?
Ups and downs.
So
irregularly.
Was that me trying to do Michael Caine doing a Christopher Walken impression?
I think you pulled it off.
Still
not quite as good as what he's doing over there.
I'll never get it right.
Of course,
Michael
it's the
Caine
real
himself,
deal.
who
The
doesn't
real
do
McCoy.
impressions, couldn't get it right. Michael Caine, also in the movie The Cider House Rules, does his best at trying to do an American accent. He kind of holds the American accent down here in his throat. Good night, you princess of young. You, whatever, I don't know the line, but you know what I'm talking about. Have you seen The Cider House Rules?
It's been a long time, but I think I remember what you're talking about.
So do you have any memory, Evan, I'm speaking to Evan inside of that vessel, of a time where you made a bad impression? Maybe by thinking you were funny and going too far.
Evan is unable to answer.
Fair enough. I don't want to interfere with the artist process. Rob, do you have any memory of a time that you embarrassed yourself? Maybe you were trying to be funny. Maybe you went too far.
I'll answer. So,
as soon as you lose attention, then you've got something to say. You deflect when I speak up, and I say, Evan, are you there? And then we move on. Go on.
So, I'm auditioning for Back to the Future.
That was not a movie with Christopher. Now, Reservoir Dogs, I'm willing to question. I'll know for a fact, Back to the Future, he is not in. Are you suddenly Christopher Lloyd?
Well, Josh.
If you tell me you're Christopher Lloyd, I might hear your story.
Josh.
Yes.
I did not get the part.
Okay.
But
I didn't mean to interrupt. I went too far.
I was there in the audition with Robert Zemeckis, and there was a role available. The role, I go back in time. My hair didn't look enough. His hair looked more like Evan's hair, and I did not get the part.
That is not a story. The story was just that you auditioned and you didn't get the part. That's the story.
I made a bad impression.
But you didn't say why you made a bad impression. You didn't say how you made a bad impression. You just said your hair didn't look the part. So is there more information that you're trying to convey that why
I think it was the hair, Josh.
You think it was the hair?
It was the hair, Josh.
Rob, do you have a memory of a time you made a bad impression?
I'm sure there's multiple times that I'm not recalling.
Maybe I'll try to think of another time I made a bad impression. Sometimes if you make a good impression when you're meeting someone, you could be dealing with someone who's got a little bit of a personality disorder. They charm you to say, oh my God, Jack, you're lovely. Jack, you're amazing. You're so good looking. You're so smart. And then, out of nowhere, you do something little, like maybe you leave a crumb on the counter. And they say, oh my God, Jack, I had all wrong about you. Maybe I was wrong because...
Sounds like a very specific scenario.
Do you know what I'm talking about? There's a type of thing that happens. And I just want to say about that, when people do that, don't trust them because they've built you up to break you down. Do you know what I'm talking about?
That's the personality disorder.
That's what I think.
They're trying to manipulate you into...
Have you ever had that happen?
Yes, of course.
Have you ever had that happen?
So you're saying there were no women in Reservoir Dogs?
We've moved on from this, Evan. For crying out loud, we've bloody moved on.
I thought you were in the picture.
No, there's not a single woman in Reservoir Dogs.
His impression really is spot on. It's uncanny.
I have been here for 40 minutes and have not made one reference to cowbells.
That was pretty good. You avoided the cowbell cliche.
Purposely...
It's a bit of a cliche. I myself, I've referenced numerous Michael Caine cliches. You've avoided the cowbell cliche, and you've still transcended the idea of the Christopher Walken impression with your own spin on the Christopher Walken impression.
Thank you, Josh.
What else did you not reference?
I haven't seen many Christopher Walken movies.
The truth
I've
comes out.
watched more of his television.
So you've been a
career.
fan of his appearances and his interview work?
Since before he was on screen.
Deep archival research.
Did anybody see the new Timothée Chalamet movie about Bob Dylan?
I haven't seen it yet. Have you?
Did anyone see it? I saw it. Did you see it?
Getting Chalamet vibes from our friend over there in his current outfit.
Sometimes I'm told I look like Timothée Chalamet's father.
You get that a lot.
You're told that as Evan, or you're told that as Christopher Walken?
As Christopher Walken. Evan.
There is no Evan,
not,
is what you're saying. He's barely here. Just a little smidge.
Please.
Just a little.
Evan's at home.
You want me to refer to you as Christopher Walken?
Evan stayed home. This is
Please do not reference Evan.
Fair enough. I won't do it again. On the set of Lincoln, apparently Daniel Day-Lewis had to be called.
Christopher Walken was not in that movie.
No, but I'm saying on the set of Lincoln,
Neither was Michael
he had to be referred to as Mr. President because he was playing Abraham Lincoln.
On the set of Big Daddy, Adam Sandler was.
Christopher Walken might actually be in that movie.
Christopher Walken.
Now, can we fact check that? Is he actually in Big Daddy? Because he does appear in quite a few Adam Sandler pictures. So you might have that one right.
I was on set. Adam Sandler was immersed in the Adam Sandler character. He did not come out of Big Daddy until he left the movie set, Josh.
So he was Big Daddy all the time. The whole time, he stayed Big Daddy.
All of
he
the
never
time.
broke character as Big Daddy. Adam Sandler stayed Big Daddy from day one till they wrapped picture, and then he had to come back and do reshoots.
So
he was Big Daddy again.
He just keeps being Big Daddy. Like that's his favorite character. He brings that over with him to every film, it seems like.
I read this book before, you know, and in the book, he talks about them asking him to do a stunt. He says, you don't want to endanger yourself if they want you to do the stunt and you don't feel safe doing the stunt. So you want to rehearse the stunt, but then sometimes they want to skip the rehearsal and they say, there's no time to do anything but do the stunt. You look at the director and you say, you do the stunt. But he says, oh, I wish I could, but there's just no time. We can't do it. We've got to do the stunt. You look at him again and you say, you do the stunt. You know, he goes into the spiel about that, doing the stunt, you know, standing up for yourself on the set. That sometimes you could risk making a bad impression. But that's another way in for me with the Michael Caine, is saying, you do the stunt. Impressionism, what can you tell us about it?
So originally the Impressionists were called that as a derogatory term by a critic leading into a show.
That's interesting.
Like many art movements kind of took on the critics' negative remarks and just kind of turned that on their head and, you know, continued
so they
on
owned
their path.
They said that we're going to own this. We're going to call it Impressionism. Is it because it's sort of like, it's not impression? They call it Impressionism because they're not doing correct impressions. They're doing their own spin on it.
Exactly. So they took a path away from the traditional, more classical art.
In my mind, that clears up a lot of my own confusion about Impressionism, because I would always think, Impressionism, what is that? So you know how people use that word and they throw it around, they go, it's almost impressionistic. I've always, my whole life, heard that, and I've thought, no, so does that mean it is like what they're doing, or it's the artist's own spin on what they're doing?
So yeah, during that movement, they were using that to make fun of them and point out that they were not actually representing, you know, the artwork how it traditionally had been.
Right, so if you
point.
paint a picture of, you know, a person of power, or you paint a picture of a tree or a bowl of fruit, you put your own spin on it, you do something crazy, it doesn't look like that bowl of fruit, they call that Impressionism. Now, right. Is that term reserved for the era in which it was made? Like if someone did something, use those tools as an artist, say I paint a fire extinguisher, it doesn't look like it, you know, I intentionally put my spin on that fire extinguisher. Could someone say, Josh, you made an Impressionist painting, or would I need to exist in what years did Impressionism exist?
Yeah, it was the mid-19th century, and I feel like you had to exist within that 20 or 30 years that the major Monet and Renoir and everyone was working to be considered impressionistic. Otherwise, it immediately skips into Van Gogh, which is like post-impressionist.
Is that the name of that movement that he was associated
correct.
with? So Van Gogh, not an impressionist. He's post-impressionist.
That's correct. And I looked to see if there was any modern or contemporary impressionists, but they don't. It's a completely different movement at this point.
I see. So movements and names, descriptions of certain things, they're kind of about the period of time they take place, aren't they?
And location as well. I think most of those guys were in Paris at that time.
So there's no Impressionist painters that exist outside of Paris?
No. I mean, in that region. I think it wasn't strict to those borders, but, probably to that group of artists within that region for sure.
Could we call Evans' impression of Christopher Walken Impressionism? If it were a painting and he was in Paris, I guess it would have to be a painting. It would have to be a painting, and he'd have to be in Paris. You see, I started leaning on a certain, right there, what happened was I started leaning on a certain type of cadence for Michael Caine. And then I had to switch notes. That's, you switch notes. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Go up, go down.
Go down.
Get big.
Would you all like to hear a story?
Yes.
I love stories, of course.
There was a movie, I can't remember which one, but I got into a fight with Robin Williams on the set of this movie.
I don't believe that happened. Are you making this up?
I splashed coffee in his face.
I don't believe a word of it. I don't think that happened. It is interesting. Michael Caine and Christopher Walken are both actors at various points in their careers said yes to lots of stuff. And they both admit, like I've seen an interview where Christopher Walken says, I don't like to turn down work. It comes to me and I do it. And I have seen Michael Caine say, I was worried about, also it had to do with his working class upbringing and he didn't have any money. So he was worried that there would be no work. So anytime a script would come, he would often say yes if the money was right because he wanted the money. I watched this movie with him the other night, two actually. One was, they're both considered bombs, right? There's The Holcraft Covenant, directed by John Frankenheimer. It started out pretty good. I quite liked it. And then it got worse. I didn't like where it was headed. It got boring, got hard to follow. I had to pause it a few times and go do something else to finish it.
The more you talk, the better it gets.
See, that's what I was trying to say to you. You keep talking and you find it. If you just stay in it, it comes out.
Just keep rolling.
You get more and more, right? Now it sounds like I'm Michael Caine
right now.
Yeah. Also, I've been doing it for the last hour. So the more you do it, the more you keep talking, the more you find it, and it sounds like you're the guy. Versus, earlier, well, I'm still trying to find it. The thing I was going to say, though, this movie I watched called The Island, directed by Michael Ritchie, I watched it, I loved it. It's one of the craziest movies I've ever seen, and it's considered a Michael Caine bomb. Ian, have you seen The Island? Do you seek out older movies much? I do. This one's crazy. It's from 1980, and it's based off a book by Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws. I think he wrote it just to get made into a movie, and he even wrote a screenplay. I thought it was fantastic, and it was such a crazy movie. You don't know what's coming. Left turns, right turns. You don't know. And Michael Ritchie, he's a great director. He did Bad News Bears. He did Wildcats with Goldie Hawn. He did Prime Cut. He did The Candidate. But then, in 1980, he makes this movie, and apparently it was a huge bomb. And Michael Caine hated working on it, and he said it was one of the worst movies that he's ever done. I personally disagree with Michael Caine. I thought, this movie's crazy. It's so great. From the very first scene, it's at points suspenseful, and there's gore, but there's humour, because he's a good comedy director. Anyway, I can't recommend The Island enough if you like a crazy movie. He's also in a lot of crap, as he said. Jaws.
What makes it so crazy?
There's scenes, the movie just pulls no punches. Okay, so the first scene.
What's the premise? What are they doing? Are they
so
on
the
an
premise,
island?
I almost don't want to give away. I don't want to give away, but
it's been out for how long? I think the secret's out.
Okay, so it's been out for 44 years, so you've had a chance, almost 45 years. It's about a journalist. He takes his son to go do research on a story he's heard about pirates. And this is set today. Well, modern day, not today.
Pirate research.
Basically, there's a hidden island.
Strong field. Pirate research.
Pirate research. Is that a real thing?
Yes.
What
in
is
this case, it is. They're talking about pirates.
Pirate research.
I'm just pulling your leg. I don't know.
Okay. See, you're so committed, I can't tell. You're making jokes. But then maybe that's Sean Connery. He makes a joke. So the movie's
Famous pirate researcher.
So the movie is about these buccaneers settled on an island. And they stayed on the island. And they kept reproducing and inbreeding. And they made a whole bunch of spawn. And so it's about this island of inbred pirates who have been there for over a century. And any time a boat comes near their island, they hijack it like a pirate does. And they steal everything and they kill everyone on the boat.
Horribly, of course. It's a horror film, yes?
It's more like a thriller. Each thing happening, you don't know it's going to happen. You can't believe it's going to happen.
Sounds a bit like the premise of this one thing called The Hills Have Eyes.
Similar.
Did you see that?
The remake or the Wes Craven?
The remake, I believe.
I did not see the remake, but I saw the one with the Wes Craven.
It's horrifying. But modern,
did it scare you? It scared you?
And it's also extremely graphic with the sorts of things they're doing to one another.
Oh, that sounds very
But it's got these inbred folks on a desolate highway. They grab people driving through the area. they do horrible things to them. Don't need to go into too much detail here. Unless you want to talk about vivisection.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Joshua Dotson.
Joshua Dotson?
Yes.
And do you do any impressions, Joshua?
Yes, I do impressions.
Who do you do?
I do my dad every now and then.
Okay, and what's your dad's name?
Jamie Dotson.
Okay, and what does he have? How does he go?
Let me do an impression of my dad ordering at a restaurant.
Okay, great.
Okay, here we go. Hey, let me get a corn dog. Can I get a corn dog?
Excuse me, do you do any impressions?
No, not really. She does.
Yo, who do you do impressions of?
You're gonna out me? Mario.
I love Mario. Now, Mario, who is Mario?
So I do Peach from, Super Mario.
Oh, okay. And is that a TV show?
Yeah, in a game. There's
Okay, great. Any other impressions?
Lushy.
Where did you start doing impressions?
Just when I was, a teenager, just being silly.
Okay. Yeah. And so you don't have a single impression?
No, not that I can think of.
Yeah. Do you do an impression of him?
No, but I do ventriloquism now.
So you can speak without moving your mouth?
Yeah. I don't know. I just been kind of dabbling in the ventriloquism.
I love that. Amateur ventriloquism.
Elmo puppet.
Oh, you do Elmo as well?
Elmo.
That's pretty great. And what's your name?
Sarah.
Sarah, and what's your name? Gabe, thank you.
Do you want to switch? You do Michael Caine.
I'll do Michael Caine.
And
you want me to do that?
I'll try to do a Sean Connery from here on out. Okay, we'll switch now. Okay, so I'm Sean Connery.
But I'm not prepared. No.
You just keep trying. You've been listening to me do it for the last hour. So maybe just do
Michael Caine.
A few ways in.
The problem, Bruce. I've watched you grow up.
There you go. That's something.
You guys literally switched right on the hour mark, too. Precise.
Right. Okay. So we're at the bloody hour. So maybe we should wrap it up. Any other fact checks?
Drifting into unwatchable content.
It may have opened up and been unwatchable content. That's the thing.
The Island, same writer as Jaws, apparently.
Correct. Oh, yes. Peter Benchley. Okay. That's what I said. Peter Benchley.
I don't remember you saying that.
No, I said it. I said Peter Benchley.
I can't do it.
You can't do it. Okay, you go back to Sean Connery. Can you find Sean Connery again?
Of course I can.
Don't blink. Ipcress fire.
What if
I think
a
my
situation...
thoughts in my head sound like Sean Connery.
I can't believe you're not Christopher Walken. I don't bloody believe it.
William Shatner.
Are you going to need some space
I may need
to let Christopher Walken air out?
I am unable to be anything but Christopher Walken, Josh.
You know, there's a movie, it's on the Criterion Channel right now, and it's called The Anderson Tapes, and it has both Sean Connery and Christopher Walken.
Sounds like a fascinating film.
I don't remember that.
You can really tell he's done his research.
Okay, I'll have to check my IMDb.
Let's not, I think that we're committing to the bit, and there's no, I was just going to say, I liked the Bob Dylan movie. I thought the Bob Dylan movie was good.
I want to see it.
I went to school with Zimmerman, great guy.
That is bloody not true. Christopher Walken is not from Hibbing, Minnesota. You might know that Bob Dylan's name is Zimmerman, but they are not from the same place.
I thought it would be interesting that Zimmerman and I went to school together, Josh.
You're saying, are you telling me that you're inventing a whole new Christopher Walken?
Is the only Christopher Walken that I know is me.
All right, so in your world, in this version of Christopher Walken, which sounds to a T, spot on, perfect.
Really is. It's something else.
You were in Reservoir Dogs with a woman. No. You almost got the part in Back to the Future. And you
totally different
went to school with Bob Dylan. So much that you know his original name, Zimmerman. Are you Jewish as well? Because Bob Dylan's Jewish.
I am Jewish.
And Christopher Walken is Jewish. In this world, I think we found a great character.
Christopher.
As the kids say, no lies detected.
Werner Herzog, he talks about something called ecstatic truth. Hello. And we've got onlookers on here.
You've got a good Herzog.
I've got an okay one. It's not great. It may not sound a lot, but it's fun to do.
It sure is.
I won't do it this time, because I think that we should have another episode of Invasion of the Overdone Impressions. I will say I'll do Werner Herzog in my stand-up. I started doing it a long time ago when it was a cool cred impression. It was obscure and no one was doing it, and I was just a film nerd fan, and I thought, wouldn't it be funny and cool to do it? I think since Herzog has become a thing that people like to do. This is a bit of catharsis. I'm trying to learn to shed the judgment about doing stuff, because it's just fun to do Michael Caine. Probably no one here watching is thinking, oh, well, he's doing Michael Caine. Doesn't he know that other people did it better? Everyone does it, and it's not the most difficult impression to do. The more you do it, the more fun it gets. And it's probably the same thing goes for Sean Connery. It's fun to do, it's fun to watch.
Don't normally do it because it's so overdone. That's right.
Is that what you say? Or
exactly, that's what I say.
But, it's fun. So is Michael Caine. And you got a good one, and I've got an okay one. I think it's the more you do it to get better. Practice makes perfect.
Can we hear your Herzog?
No, I'm not going to do it. You have to listen another time. I'm going to work on it because I like to work on it. I had an acting job. I played Carl Sagan one time. I can't do that because I've been working on this one. We should wrap up. That's all. Thanks for listening to Here Come the Details. I think we got all the details about impressions. We discussed good impressions, bad impressions, and the art of doing an impression.
Thank
Jack,
you.
thank you so much for being here.
Of course, my pleasure.
Thank you so much for bringing your Sean Connery. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Good day.
Impressions. Are they impressions because they impress a small but true inkling of the soul of their source, or are they merely impressive to you?
Thank you for joining us. Huge thanks to Jack Damminga and Evan Hughes. Tremendous shout out to those who endured the coldest day of the year with us on Main Street. Nathan Gray, Johnny Polygon, Haley Parker, Josiah Parks, Brady Leach, also Joshua Dotson, Sarah and Gabe. This discussion was shot by Ian Upton, episode edited by Ethan Cooper, remote segment shot and edited by Ethan Cooper, theme by Brian Gerges and Dean Minta. And this is your producer Rob Stewart saying we'll see you next time.